And welcome to Planet 412. It is a special interview today because I get to interview one of my best friends in the whole world, Sybilla Irwin. Welcome to Planet 412.
Oh, thank you so much. And thank you for that beautiful honor.
Oh, well, it's the truth. And you and I got to know each other obviously from me being a guest on your show,
Mhm.
Sketching Encounters. And everybody make sure you head over to Sybilla's channel, Sketching Encounters. It is absolutely incredible what she does. Her and I worked together for almost a year to bring what me and my friends saw to life. And every time I look at it, Sib, it brings me back. So we worked quite a while on that.
Yes, we did. Amazing, if I might say, amazing the work we did. They give me chills looking at them, so I can't even imagine the impact it must have on you when you look at them.
Well, you know what? That was one of the first questions I was going to have for you. Besides, if you wouldn't mind just telling everybody who you are and whatever information you want to give out, it's up to you and how it got you into doing what you do.
How I got to doing what I do. Well, my name is Sybilla Irwin. I'm from South Texas. I am a mom and grandmother. I'm an artist. I first began doing art when I was just a little kid, and I loved wildlife and horses. So those were my favorite subjects. So, um, just like a lot of people, you go to college and you don't. I had no idea what I wanted to be. Uh, so I got a degree in theater and a minor in art, and then went out into the world and did theater for a long time, and that was great. And then I started doing art again on the side, and right. Then you get married, you have kids, and you do all that stuff, and then slowly you kind of come around to the things that you love to do, and art is just um, one of those things that I have to do. It's not like an option. I think a lot of artists feel that way. And then I got into teaching, and I was teaching. I became a special ed teacher. Went back to college, got a special ed degree. Teach in Texas, and was teaching. And I think sometimes in my private life, I would go to the web, and I was watching Whitley Strieber. And I don't know if your audience will be familiar with Whitley Strieber. He wrote a book called Communion back in, I think it hit the book stands in 1986 or 87, sometime around in there. And I had a crazy experience with seeing the alien on his book cover that changed my life. And that's a whole nother rabbit hole. But he had on his homepage a 911 recording of a witness of a man who was calling 911 about seeing this huge, man. And she was like, is it a man? And he goes, well, I don't know. It's huge and it's out there. And I'm sure lots of people have heard this.
911, what are you reporting? With someone or something crawling around out here. Did you see what it was? A person or an animal, or? I can't tell. All I know is my central light came on, and I just happened to glimpse and see this thing running across the yard. A good-sized man, or something that looks like a man. I don't know what it was, just that it ran across the yard. Okay. You've had problems in the neighborhood before? Yeah, my dog was killed here just recently. I don't know what it was. Whatever it is, it's running. Couldn't catch it if I was going to chase it. But whatever it was standing up. I'm out here looking through the window now, and I don't see anything. I don't want to go outside. Jesus Christ, you better... Tia! Hello? Get somebody out here. What's going on now, sir? That son of a bitch is about 6'9", I don't know. You see him now, sir? Yes, I'm looking right at him. Uh-oh. Okay, hang on. He's right... Is he in your yard, sir? Yeah, God, he's big. Okay, what's he in your yard? He's looking at me. Oh, the guy is on foot. I don't know what... It's big, real big person. That's all I can say. Okay, it is a person. Yeah, I just was a person or somebody really big.
Well, yes. I mean, it's such that recording just hit me. And so from there, I discovered the BFRO. That's how I found the BFRO. And because I didn't know anything about that, I had seen, the Patterson footage, which, from 1967. And I remember when I first saw it, I was like, I didn't doubt for a second that that was a real creature. And I don't know why. I mean, you know, when I look back, there was just something that was so authentic about the way it moved that to me spoke that that's a real creature. So I've always kind of believed that Sasquatch exists. And then I heard that 911 thing, and then I started reading all the reports, you know, on the BFRO's webpage in Texas. And then after I read all of those, then I started reading all the other reports. And then, you know, it just, after I finished Texas, I just started, you know, I'd pick a state and I'd read all those reports. And I was just so, God, talk about hook, line, and sinker. I was just, you know, like fish hooked. And I was, to me, it was, I don't know, maybe because my life was so regimented, being a teacher and being a mom and all that, it was like my getaway. When I would get home and the kids were in bed, I would go to my computer and I would just read reports. And I'd find myself up, you know, at 2 a.m. and I'd be like, oh my gosh, you know, I gotta get so sleepy. But I was so struck by the patterns that I saw in all of these reports. It was just, you know, someone in Washington State is reporting a behavior, and then someone in Florida, these people aren't talking to each other, but they're reporting exactly the same behavior. And I'm saying, how, if this is not a real creature, how are all these patterns throughout the United States happening if this is not like some real creature? And I was just had a voracious appetite for that. And I always have had that kind of an appetite for the mysterious and the unknown. Just a curiosity that is just unbound. And here I am at my age, and I still have that same incredible curiosity about what's out there. You know, I mean, that's never until I think my last breath. I'm still going to be a searcher. I'm just one of those people. My brain is just wired that way. And then BFRO started having expeditions. I think started in 2005 or 2006. And I told everybody, I said, if they come to Texas, I'm going. And sure enough, you know, 2008, they posted that they were going to have a expedition in Texas, North Texas. And I signed up and nobody would go with me. So I went by myself.
There you
And
go.
yeah. And I had the best time. I was a changed person. I mean, it just rearranged my molecules. I felt like for the first time in my life, I knew what I was supposed to do. Like, this is it. This is the thing. And even my kids, you know, noticed a change in me. I became an investigator and then started, you know, taking reports. And Texas had this huge backlog of reports because it's such a big state, and there were only a handful of people that were, you know, doing reports because it's a volunteer, you know, position. You don't get paid for any of that. And man, I just discovered this passion that I had for people. I mean, I'll never forget the first time I talked to this man. He was a farmer. He was retired, but he was a farmer, like game warden. And he had this experience when he was a teenager with this Sasquatch running underneath their house. Like the kids had been playing in the cellar and they had forgotten to close the doors. And one night their mom looked outside and there was a similar situation to that man in Washington. This thing was standing right underneath like a light, just looking at the house. And, you know, she's freaking out. And then it just runs underneath the cellar
Oh my God.
underneath their house. And it's pushing up the planks where they're standing. And, you know, and growling and making horrific noises. And I mean, I'll never forget this man and his gratitude. He said, just, you know, he told me a story, and and then he had a couple of other encounters, and it changed my life. Just the fact that this poor man had nobody to talk to. Like he just thanked me again and again and again. Thank you so much. You know, and I reached out to him multiple times. Thank you so much for just listening to me. You know, like these poor people. And it hit me really, really quickly after becoming an investigator that these people, there's nobody advocating for them. Like, no, who's there for them? Because they are afraid to talk about he couldn't talk about it professionally. And there, at the time, like, things have finally changed now. People at least have forums to, and platforms to talk to. But back even in 2008, when I was doing this, and then earlier when these experiences were happening to him, he had nobody. So my heart just grew. You know what I mean? You find, like, your tribe is just people who are having these crazy experiences, who, changes their life forever. You are a perfect example, Matt, of, someone who's had their life just totally rearranged. You're never the same person after what's happened to you. And God, my heart is just, that's where my heart is for people who are having these things. And then after some investigators, of course, found out I was an artist. And so one of them from Wisconsin, said he had a witness he was working with, and she had found something on the web that was similar to what she saw, but the hair was all wrong. And would I try to fix it so that it would look like what she saw? And I said, well, I'll take a stab at it. So, and it worked. And then, he was like, well, hey. And I was like, well, hey, it's kind of like chocolate and peanut butter.
Yeah.
It works. So I started doing witness sketches then after that. And, the first ones I don't think were very good, but, I've gotten better throughout the years.
First of all, you've touched on immediately what I was going to say is people that have had experiences really try and find a forum for people to understand, or just what you said, listen to them. Because when you've had something like that changes your life just beyond any explanation, the majority of the time, everyone is, going to be either laughing at you or doubting you, or this person's crazy. And thankfully, like you said, it started to change in this day and age. And that's why I started my channel, to have some people to be able to open up and speak about it. And you mentioned me, if I didn't have the ability to discuss it with you, and you putting it down on paper, and I'll show everybody, what the pictures look like, I don't know if I'd be able to handle it as well as I am. I was interviewed the other night on a UK channel, and they were saying how you seem well adjusted considering what happened to you. And I don't know how well adjusted I am, but it is because of you, Sybilla, and other people that have helped. But I've never been more able to open up with anyone other than you, because of your demeanor, because of how sweet you are, your heart that you talk about. And, again, putting it down on paper. Did you interview this gentleman, the first one? Is he on your channel on Sketching Encounters?
No. I don't, he was an older gentleman back in 2008. So I don't know if I can even still find him, but I would love to have him on the show. His mom, because it was him and his mom and him and a younger sister, and this thing was pushing like the floorboards, and his mom went and got a pistol and actually shot through the floor. Like, that's how terrified she was, because it was bouncing them. Can you imagine?
That's horrifying.
And I guess it left, and then and his father was drove a truck, like a long road haul, and so he was not there. And that was common, that he would be gone for days and weeks at a time. And she, I guess she told him, he came back, and she told him, and he just kind of laughed it off. And she said, "I'm not staying here." So they moved.
Understandable.
Thank God. And then later on in his life, when he was 14, they moved back to that area. They must have had family or something, so they moved back. And then I think he said it was 14 or 15, and the girl that he liked was down the road from them, and he would literally just walk, to see her. And one evening when he was coming back, he was being, I guess, paralleled by this. He knew what it was.
Mm-hmm.
And then he started running, and he just his description of this thing running, with him. And there was a street light up, like one street light, and he raced for that street light, hoping and praying that it would stay, that would kind of keep it
Mm-hmm.
at bay. and it just stepped right into the street light. Like,
Oh,
so he got a
wow.
really good look at it. But he survived, obviously, to tell the story. But yeah, there's quite a few reports I did back in 2008. And one of them, a couple of them I have done the report, like Jimmy. There's a man named Jimmy from Oklahoma that I've done his, and he's on the channel. He was like the second person I interviewed, and I
Okay.
love Jimmy. He's like great. But there's a couple that, and that's kind of one of my ideas for my channel. I want to go back and do some of the files that couldn't be published on the BFRO, because back in the day, the BFRO was trying to establish credibility. They were trying to look like, and they were trying to be a scientific based organization. So sometimes the reports that had a UFO in it or had some really strange, what we call woo, which I really don't like, more of the paranormal stuff, just didn't get reported because they were trying to build credibility, with their database and with their, people. But
And that word itself, not to interrupt you, Sybilla, but that word itself makes it not seem as serious. Woo,
I know I hate it.
and I have friends
It's
that use it,
diminishing.
but yeah,
Yeah.
I agree with you. It takes away from the seriousness of what was
Yes.
happening.
Yes, because if you've experienced those things, it's not funny when it's happening. It can be really terrifying when stuff moves on its own, or there are sounds happening in your house, and you should be able to see what's causing them, but you can't. It's invisible to your eye. And when you're in those moments, that's it's not funny. That's why I don't
No,
like the whole, and I don't like the word Bigfoot either. I just, that to me, again, it's one of those things that sounds cartoonish, and there's nothing about the Sasquatch experience to me that's cartoonish, with one exception, and is that sometimes their legs can be moving so fast that it looks like a blur, and I've actually seen that.
Oh, you have? Where
I
were
have.
you when you saw it?
I was in Kentucky, about 2 miles away from the Crittenden. I lived in Crittenden, Kentucky for 5 years at a habituation site, and there was a man about 2 miles from me as the crow flies, like north, who was having activity on his property, and he wanted to show me a print that he had found. So I was at his place, and we were picking up the lawnmower because my lawnmower had died, and he took me down to the creek. And this creek was cool because, like, the house was set kind of up here, like it was kind of, his house was kind of built on a hill, and you parked your vehicle up here, but the house sat down here. But then the river went wrapped, kind of didn't completely wrap around the house, but it came in front of the house and to the side of the house, and then went down. And the actually where he lived, it was a conjunction of two rivers, or two creeks, more like a river, more like creek, creek, whatever. And where these two creeks came together, that's where his house was. And there had been a report that had been filed on the BFRO just to the south of his property. So, I mean, it was really interesting. Like within like 3 or 4 miles of that property, there was all sorts of stuff happening. Anyway, so he'd showed me what looked kind of like a partial print, and then we were walking back down the creek. I mean, we were on the bank, walking, and all of a sudden there was this noise, this sound that, to this day I've never heard anything that was like it. It was a growl, but it was not. There was not a dang thing about it that was natural. It was almost mechanical. Like it had a tone, and it's so funny because him and I've talked about it throughout the years, and he's never heard anything like it either. And he has this huge mechanical background. He's he can fix anything. He's kind of like a genius level guy. In fact, his great grandfather's Alexander Graham Bell. So I mean, this
Oh,
guy
wow.
has, this man has, I don't know what his IQ is, but he's one of those people that he's an inventor, kind of that kind of mind. And and him and I have sat and tried to try to describe the growl that we heard, and neither of us can. Like, it's just, which sounds
Did it
so
have a synthesized kind of almost computery sound to it? That's what I had heard when I think I told you about the dreamscape dream that I had, where
Yes, I
I saw
remember.
the creature that we saw when I was
Yes.
14, and it came and spoke to me in the dream and everything, and when it spoke, it had almost like speaking through a synthesizer or something, and it was
Yeah.
really, really strange.
Yeah. This was just, it was, instead of like an organic growl, it was more like a mechanical growl.
Okay.
But not like, which makes no sense, but because it doesn't really seem like it was metal, but there was just some, I can't, I mean, him and I literally
Otherworldly
sat for
about it.
hours tried to describe this, and we can't, like, neither of us can. And it crazily seemed like it was metal, but there was just some, I can't, I mean, him and I literally
Otherworldly
sat for
about it.
hours tried to describe this, and we can't, like, neither of us can. And the crazy thing was, here we're standing on the bank, and he looked south and I looked north, and there was the creek went on, and then it kind of split into two, and there was a huge tree that had fallen across the creek, and from behind one of this huge fallen tree, I saw, this thing took off, and its back was level with the tree when it was up on the because this tree, okay, so it like split, and there was an island of rocks and trees, and then this tree was down, and this thing had been on that island, and then ran across the creek, and its back was as high as that tree, that broken tree, and it ran across there so fast that it shocked my brain. Like, my brain started doing this like, my brain went into neutral and was just kind of spinning, like, and I know I was thinking, like, I know it was like, what did I just see? But then I couldn't even put like a thought together. Like, my brain was stunned, and I think I just stood there with my mouth open, just looking at the spot where I had seen it, and I was still like just looking, like, with this weird look on my face. And he walked up to me, and he was like, "Are you okay?" And I couldn't even speak to him at first. I couldn't even tell him. Like, it took me a while to just even form words, because my brain was just like,
You were in shock.
I really was. And this thing's legs were moving so fast, and it was on all fours. Like, it ran across that creek on all fours and up into the wood line. And it moved so fast that it was blurry, like the legs were blurry.
Did he ever see it himself?
He did not see it. All he heard was the growl.
That reminds me, have you seen the video that is online it's only a couple years old, I think at the most. It's in Russia. There's a father and a son who are walking through the forest, and there is no doubt whatsoever what runs across the screen. And it is a Sabe or Sasquatch, whatever you want to call it. And when it was running, it was first down on all fours. It was like a gorilla would run, and it hopped up and it grabbed a limb and it jumped down, and then it went zoop, it was just like, whoa. I was
Yeah,
shocked by the video. And
right.
that reminds me of that. I'll have to throw that on here
Yeah, I
for
know
our
which one you're
video.
talking about. I watched it like 100 times.
Yeah, it's
The
incredible.
and the fluidity of that creature, like the fluidity of it. And it was the same with this one that I saw that ran across that creek. It's just, I've never seen any creature move that fast. I mean, multiply like I've seen a deer in like full, like when a deer busts. I used to be riding my horse, on the property we had, and the deer would bust, you know, leaping across, the trail, just in a full, like this thing moved like 10 times faster than that. Like, if you blinked, you'd have missed it. It was insane.
Hmm.
And I told him, I said, I just saw one. Whenever I could talk, and we walked over to where that tree was, to where that tree had fallen down, and measured it. And it was about 4 feet, so that means this thing on all fours, the back of it was up 4 feet. So if it would
Wow.
have stood up, I guess,
Double or a little more in
yeah,
height.
yeah.
That is the kind of, I mean, almost exact when what I saw with my friends when it was leaving the building, when this train came by the blast furnace that we were in, when it was, first of all, when it's coming up, I didn't see any blur. It just was how fast it was coming up was, you just couldn't wrap your head around it. But then when it left and it hit that top of the first floor, second floor down to the first, and it started to morph into that shadow, it was just like, shoo, no, it's just like, whoa. I mean,
Yeah.
you just can't fathom it. But
No.
wow, that's incredible.
Yeah. And that was in broad daylight too. Just the craziest thing. It's just really
That's
cool.
wild.
That's the only cartoonish thing that I've ever experienced in regards to, Sasquatch. There's nothing else about it. That's why I don't like the word Bigfoot. It's just,
Yeah.
it's not funny.
No, it's not. It isn't.
No.
It changes people's lives
Yeah.
forever.
Yeah. And not all, obviously not all Sasquatch experiences are terrifying. There's a
Hmm.
lot of people out there who are having, um, having great interactions with, so, and I never had, when I was living on the property in Crittenden, like I only had like one or two kind of scary things, but when it's 2:30 in the morning and, something smacks the house so hard, and it was a brick house,
That's
when some,
power.
yeah, I mean, the force, I mean, I mean, there was some wood up at the top, like in the eave, and it must have hit up there. Um, but you just sit straight up in bed, and it's that's frightening. Those kind of things are frightening. Or sometimes there was a time when it went, three uh, huge earth-shaking steps across the porch. Just boom, boom, boom across the wooden porch. That wakes you up, and you're kind of just sitting there waiting for what's going to happen next, and nothing happens. But it's the just those catching you off guard in the middle of the night, kind of moments. But other than that, I was never really scared.
Well, what do you think, since they were, one or different, multiple, what do you think they were doing, in your opinion?
uh Attention seeking.
I mean, that's fair.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, yeah. Well, and it's funny, like with the when they hit the house, I did, I got out of bed and I walked around to that side of the house, and I eventually peeped out because you're kind of afraid. I don't
Right?
want to open the curtains and there's a
Mhm.
face, because that would just,
Oh,
no,
oh, yeah.
that's such a shock to the brain. So I didn't want to do that. So I got up the courage. And I had sheer curtains too, like the
You would
little,
have seen a shape behind them.
yeah, well, or they would have definitely seen me. But I didn't turn any lights on. You sneak over there and you're looking out. And my neighbors were outside of their trailer house in their front yard, like shining flashlights around.
So
So
they heard something.
I kind of think that they got their place smacked as well, because they were out there.
Mhm.
Yeah. So maybe it's, hey, we're here. We're just coming through. I don't know. Obviously attention seeking, but they didn't throw things at me. They left gifts for me. I left gifts. I was feeding them. I was putting food down there, and they would leave gifts for me as well. And I mean, all sorts of cool things, feathers and rocks. And, one time there was a family of not bluebirds. Oh, what are those huge? They're not a bluebird. It's a big, blue jay. That's what it is.
Okay.
There was a big family of blue jays in the backyard, and I was mowing, and I noticed that wasn't seeing the blue jays for a couple of weeks. And when you live by yourself for years, you kind of talk to yourself. So I don't know if I said this to myself, like if I just said it in my head, like, where are the blue jays? Haven't seen them. Or if I actually said it out loud. But then a couple of days later, there was a dead blue jay on my front porch table. Like, no, on the chair. There's just a dead, it was, it looked like it had like it was poked, like either with a stick or something. There was a hole in its chest, and its tail feathers were gone.
Oh,
But I know. And then I felt like, oh, did I do that? Did I cause that to happen because I
no,
was asking about the blue jays? But, you know, they're paying attention to what you're thinking and saying. And so they showed me that the blue jays were they're still
not around for a reason. Yeah.
oh man.
Now, you brought up something that's, been talked about many, many times is, that if you think things that they can hear it as well. Um, obviously not many humans have the ability to, be psychic or see into the future or anything you want to say. Where do you think these things come from that they have these abilities? You think they're from Earth or do you think they're from another dimension?
I kind of think both. I think it's, I don't think it doesn't have to be either or. I think they've been here probably for forever. I think they're kind of ancient.
Hmm.
And I think I don't know that all of them are multidimensional, but I do believe that some of them are. Kind of like I believe myself to be multidimensional. I mean, I've experienced myself, being out of my body. My consciousness has been out
Hmm.
of my body, and I've, gone places and brought back information that, that I could validate. So I think we're all kind of multidimensional. Some of us just have tools, they have abilities that we probably have had or used to have, and we just don't have them right now. And I think that's true of psychic abilities as well.
That's amazing. Obviously with you and I, we had our video that we did before you and I had met. Had you already known a lot about dogmen or looked into them as much?
I had looked into them because I had this really interesting experience back in the late 1990s. I met a man who had been in the dark programs, like he had been one of the earlier remote viewers out in
Hmm.
California back in the 60s, and he was semi-retired when I met him, but he would still get called up to do some ops. Um, and he is the first person, of course, we grew up hearing about werewolves and stuff, but he is
Right.
the first person that said, that he was telling me all sorts of stuff. And back at the time, back in the day, in that day, I thought, God, this guy is either like 100% like crazy, or he's telling the truth.
Hmm.
And I really wished I'd recorded the things that he had told me, because I mean, our first conversations were about UFOs because I had a lot of questions because of experience that I've had since I was a kid. So that's how we started, is talking about that. And he assured me that I wasn't crazy, and that, the government really, did have a treaty with
Oh,
the Great.
oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. I mean,
Well, they definitely use remote viewing. It sounds like you have that ability as well.
I do sort of, but it's not something I'd actually something I'd like to learn more about, and and pursue, and hone that tool. But he told me way back when about all the stuff that's come out now, about UFOs being, uh, gliding over missile silos and taking everything offline. He told me about that way, like years and years ago, like back in the 90s.
Wow.
And I'll never forget him saying this. He said he was talking about, he knew that they were going to off him as well, because there was only two members of his team that were left, and they'd all died in, really stupid, mysterious ways. And so he said, they have a tool, they can just point it at your heart, and it, gives you a heart attack, or they can point it at your head and give you a stroke, and, you lose everything. He says, so I'll either die by one of those means. And I used to ask him, why are you telling me all this? And he said, because you listen. He said, I need to tell somebody, because I'm not going to be here much longer. And it was like, don't say that, because he was
Right.
such a great guy. He was such a great friend, and he had kids and everything. Um, and
And did
there were,
he die in a strange way?
well, yeah, I mean, that, just exactly like he said.
Wow.
He His wife called me 2005, and said, well, Sybilla, they got him. He's had a stroke and he doesn't even know who I am anymore. And it just, heartbreaking,
Ugh.
just heartbreaking. So, and I don't know how much longer he lived after that, but he did have a son, and that son knew that there was a location that had a bunch of evidence. So he did have evidence stored somewhere that only his son knew about. So I don't know. I don't know whatever happened to all that. But he's the first one that told me, and he gave me very specific information. He said, these were biologically created by our government. And he used to look at me and just say, Sybilla, you have no idea what your government is involved in. He said, if you did, you would not be able to sleep at night. He would say things like that. And then he said, these are biological weapons that were created, to be like super soldiers kind of things.
Mm-hmm.
And he described an event where, because he wore a pager, and he would just get paged, and he would have to go, just be ready anytime he got paged to go to certain areas, and he would get picked up in helicopters and just taken to wherever they needed, work to be done. So he said that they were called to a place in South America. One of these things had gotten out and was just killing villages, killing all the people in the village. And so they were sent down there to, stop it. And he said they have some kind of armor plating, on their chest. And they were killing them with some kind of laser weapon.
What kind of being was this? Was this a dogman?
It was a dog. He didn't call it a dogman. He just said it's a soldier. It is a massive 8-foot thing with, a dog's head with superior strength and speed, that were made, they were killing machines, and they were made by our government.
They look like that. I can attest.
Yeah. And he said, I'll never forget till the day I die what it sounded like when we were hitting it, we were killing it. I'll never forget the sounds that it made.
Did he describe it at all? Was what he was saying?
No, I mean, I don't think he could. He just said it was but it haunted him. Like the sound of killing this thing just, haunted him till I guess he lost all of his memory. But, and it's so funny. You know how some people, especially when they're I think he was 65 when I met him. And he told me that story like years and years later. We were sitting out by a campfire on his property, and he went into telling me the story about this thing that they killed. And he didn't remember telling it to me before, and I wasn't going to stop him. I wanted to hear it again.
Mm-hmm.
And he told it exactly the same way. And then he ended it with, I'll never forget, till the day I die, the sound of that thing scream when we were killing it.
The anguish in its voice.
Never forget it. Yeah, till the day
It
he
makes
died.
you wonder, was it killing all those people in the villages because of the way that they had treated it and made it into this weapon? That kind of makes you think about that. It was taking it out on other human beings for what we put it through.
Either that or that's really what it was made for.
Yeah.
It was made to be a killing machine. So if that's the way it was programmed.
Do you believe that they started making these because they found other ones, or did he say anything about that?
He didn't. And, if I could talk to him today, that would definitely be, but back
how
in
did they get the idea for it?
Yeah. Like where was this, is this something like the Egyptians used to, interact
Mm-hmm.
with? But he was scarred. I mean, he was scarred by the things he had seen. There's no that that event scarred him. You could tell. You can tell when people are telling, especially older people. You could tell that experience really scarred him for life. Not only the fact that our government would do such a thing and create such a thing, but I think later on, you know, after 911 happened, he was one of the first people, you know, to call me and said, you know, those were bombs, you know. That was a demolition.
Oh, I believe that
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. No, he called me that night, and he told me, he even told me what kind of, you know, bombs they were. He said, "You're,
Oh,
you know, our government." He just said, he just kept saying, "Our government's just horrific." He was the first one to tell me about the whole New World Order thing that they were going to be, you know, trying to do, and all of that. He was talking about the way, you know. So I was kind of educated about a lot of stuff back in the late 90s by this man who half of the time I just couldn't wrap my head around the things he was saying. But, you know, over the years, everything that he told me about has come to pass.
now are
He
you
al-
seeing signs of I'm sorry to cut you
yeah,
off.
I
Are
mean,
you
even with the, you know, he told me that AIDS was created by our government.
I believe it.
Yeah, I mean, he said there'll be a depopulation event. You know, he said I won't experience it, but you will, and you know,
We
so
just went
when
through it.
yeah, when it starts happening, it's kind of like, well, you know, here it is. This is what he told me. You know, they were gonna do, and they're not done yet. I don't.
Do you see signs of the New World Order like today of things he was saying were gonna happen?
um, yeah, I mean, the deep state is you know, is a real thing. You know,
Mhm.
they're trying to kill they're trying to kill people who are fighting against them for
Yep.
sure. Yeah. So yeah,
Wow. Well, God rest his soul. Out
yeah.
of every story or experience that you've ever heard on everything you've ever done, what is the one that most blew you away? Even if you didn't do on your channel, what is the number one, like, most earth-shaking story have you ever heard?
I think yours. Um, I'll never forget hearing yours for the first time. That that shook me. Your experience and Martin.
Martin Groves.
Yes, when I heard Martin Groves. So really, there's kind of a tie for me with you and Martin Groves. To me, both of your stories have your experiences. You know, that's a 10 out of a 10 for me. Both of them had such a huge impact on me hearing those. Really, I think that's the you too. More so than any Sasquatch experience. There's something about the Dogman experience that to me is just just terror. I mean, I don't ever want to, like, you know, I don't, it's just not an experience I ever want to have. And I'm very open-minded and I'm very brave, but I do not want to see one of those
I
things.
try and tell people that too. You hear I get so thousands of comments since I started my channel. I would love to see one. No, you would not. You don't want to be put in that situation. These are
No.
not flowery Sasquatch trying to be friends with you. The only two stories I've ever heard about dogmen is causing fear just to scare people, just to do it, or going to kill someone, one or the other. There's no
Yeah.
positives out of it.
Yeah.
So I agree.
Every Dogman witness I have worked with has basically said if they could have gotten to me, they would have killed me. It was clear.
Mhm.
Like it was clear that was their intention. Yeah. No. Yeah, your experience and Martin's experience.
Yeah, his is definitely, and what also, people that doubt them, um, for Martin, for me, besides my own, that's the strongest one I've ever heard. And he's an ex-police officer. I mean,
Yeah,
there's really no reason. And for myself, I've never gotten anything out of telling my experience either. So there's really doesn't make sense to make stuff like that up. So
yeah,
I agree with you. You just went on an amazing journey into Alaska with Fred Roll.
mhm.
I interviewed him, and you got us together. I appreciate that. He's a great human being. How was that experience going with them? And Miguel was there, right? He was there
Yes,
too. Yeah. How'd it go for
yeah.
you? How
It
was
was
it?
awesome. It was awesome from the time, you know, it touched down. They just Fred took such great care of me, and we met that same, I mean, we went straight from the airport, to go get supplies. And that's when we met up with Miguel and the other guys. And they were just so welcoming, and it was just fantastic. And I've never been to Alaska before, so I was so taken with. I mean, I've lived in the mountains before. I lived for 6 years in Colorado, and I lived, years in Georgia and Tennessee and Kentucky. But there's something about the light in Alaska that's just different, and there's something about almost like an energetic thing there. Have you been to Alaska?
I have not. That's
It's,
somewhere I want to go, though.
yeah, there's something about it. And I'd love to go back and do some more, do some more camping. And I've never lived in a place where they have bears that size either. So, yikes, it's really scary.
Did you see any bears or anything
We
when you
did.
were there?
Yeah, we did. One kind of started to come up into camp. I think it was following, like the breakfast scent.
Mm-hmm.
And the crazy thing was, and like all of the guys, Miguel probably didn't have as much experience with bears as the other guys that were with us. Fred was carrying, and then the other two had, they had their stuff too. But I mean, the crazy thing was to watch whenever whenever one of them said, "Hey, bear," well, then that sent. I watched Fred looked at Russ to see where the bear was, because he'd be able to tell by where Russ was talking to. So I watched Fred look at Russ and identify like where the bear was. Then he finds the bear. I mean, he has his gun out of his holster like in 2 seconds. He's like ready to go. Like
Yeah,
he's
that's not something you want popping up in your camp.
no, I mean, they're so prepared because as Fred will tell you, you have seconds, and that's all you've got, because if they can run 45 miles an hour if they're
Yeah, 30, 35, I think is the max. But I mean, my God, you'd have to be in a car to get that fast for us.
But they were so on point. Like they were so on point. Of course, this bear turned. Fortunately for the bear, it turned and went away from our camp. But just their readiness, it was so impressive. I was very, very impressed. And
Did you have any? I'm sorry. Go
they
ahead.
had seen some other bears too. Like Miguel had seen, they'd gone out and done a lot of hiking, and they went out with a thermal camera and stuff, and they had seen some, bears at night and stuff too. So they were all around us. The bears were. We didn't have any Sasquatch activity.
I was just going to ask, did you have anything strange happen at all?
No, nothing strange that I can remember. But it was just a great experience and great guys.
And
And,
I can't wait to see it someday. My cousin told me when he went on a cruise to Alaska, he said, "I've never seen anything more beautiful in my life than Alaska."
it is. It's just breathtaking. The mountains are, and like I said, the way the light hits them, there's something about that, and the angle of the sun. It's just creates this. I don't know. It's just breathtaking. Like it just stops you down. Like you just stop, and you're just in awe, and you don't want to leave either. Like I don't want to leave. It was so beautiful. Yeah, I would go back in a heartbeat. It's lovely there.
Well, Fred had an incredible experience. Miguel has a number on his channel as well.
Yes, and actually, I'm going to be doing some witness sketches for him.
Okay,
So
awesome.
he's going to be on my show as soon as I get my act together. I am so behind.
Isn't that how it always is, though?
Yeah, I'm super behind. Like I have so many witnesses. But I've got my mom I'm taking care of. And so a lot of energy goes that way. And I do not regret, that time that I give to my mom. She's
Absolutely.
94, and she deserves.
God bless her.
Yeah, she deserves whatever time she needs. So, I've got the rest of my life to do witness sketches. So,
well, on that note, Sybilla, we're gonna head our way out, but I wanted you to let everybody know, what is going on with you. If there's any information you'd like to throw out, and please push Sketching Encounters.
Oh, Oh, well, thank you so much for that opportunity. There's if there's anyone out there that has had an experience, like I said, I'm a little bit backed up, so you have to be patient with me. But I would love to, and if you would like to tell your story about your encounter, and then have me do the sketches for them to kind of bring it to life. People can find me either on Facebook, just Sybilla Christine Irwin, or you can go to my website, which is just SybillaIrwin.com, and you can just send me, there's a contact button, just send me an email, and I check my email every day, multiple times a day. And let's see, what else? I've got some great witnesses lined up that I'm really looking forward to you guys hearing their stories. And yeah, there's some other stuff on the burner, but I don't want to talk about it yet because I don't want to jinx it.
Mm-hmm. That's okay.
Oh, and if there's any content creators out there that you have witnesses that you would like their art done for your podcast, in the same, offer the same to you, Matt. If any of your witnesses would like to have a witness sketch done, and then you use that sketch on your podcast with them, I'm here for that.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, I just want people, I just know, just looking at your experience, there's no way, with you just using your words, even if you are fabulous at giving a description, there's no way you can describe what you experience with just words alone. There's just no way. There's no way that words do it compared to like an image.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. So I think it makes a difference for people being able to turn that image and show people like this is what we encountered. This is why, this is what messed up our lives. This is why these people aren't here. This is why, it's just different. It's words are great, but they don't convey the real sense of what you experience. There's no way.
Agreed.
Not like an image. So I feel blessed and I feel like this is a talent God gave me for this reason, to be an advocate for people like yourself who have, had these experiences, that God put me, in your life for that reason.
Well, I'm glad you are. You're a dear friend of mine, and you helped me so much by just listening and then us together working on showing what I saw. So I will always be in your debt, and I will always be your friend. Thank you.
Well, ditto. And you help. I mean, I hope people understand how involved you are. You know what I mean? Like how involved you are in the creation of your witness sketch. It's not something out of my head. Like
no, it's definitely comes from whoever saw what they saw. It's hard work. And I mean, there were hundreds of times you and I were talking about it, and I said, no, not quite.
That's not it.
Yeah. So it was amazing what you're able to do. You have definitely God's gift.
Well, thank you. And only with your help and it is that way. It's that way with the witnesses. Only with their help do these things come alive. It's really a team effort. Yeah.
Agreed. Well, thank you, Sybilla, so much for being on Planet 412.
It's an honor being here. And I love you, Matt.
I love you too. Thank you. Okay, everybody, that was an awesome interview with my dear friend Sybilla Irwin. Again, please go to Sketching Encounters on YouTube, support her channel, join it, subscribe, and do everything. You like the video. She's incredible. And if, as she said, if you've had an experience yourself, contact Sybilla and she will work with you however long it takes to get what you saw down for others to see. Thank you, everybody, and we'll see you later. So much for tuning in. Don't forget to like and subscribe, as it greatly helps out the channel. I'll see you next time on Planet 412.